Imagine for a moment a man who made the world laugh, who wore the mask of happiness while inside he was searching for something deeper. Fame, wealth, recognition, he had it all. Yet in his heart, there remained a void that nothing of this world could fill. When someone like Jim Carrey, a face known to millions, pauses and turns toward Islam, people begin to ask why. What could make a person who had everything the world chases seek peace in submission to the Almighty? Imagine a person who is standing before the cameras, dressed in designer clothes with lights flashing all around them. They smile, they wave, and the world sees them as happy, confident, and successful. Yet when those lights turn off and the crowd goes home, they sit in silence feeling empty inside. Fame is deceiving, wealth is deceiving, and recognition can be deceiving. A human being can appear to have it all, yet their heart remains restless, their mind remains unsettled, and their nights are sleepless. This is the reality of chasing what people offer while neglecting what the Almighty has placed within us. The truth is, fame and wealth cannot heal the heart. They can decorate your life on the outside, but they cannot bring peace to your soul on the inside. The applause of the world will never replace the comfort that comes when you are at peace with your Creator. Every human being longs for peace, and yet we search for it in the wrong places. Some believe it is hidden in the accumulation of wealth. Others think it is found in being recognized and adored by people. Some assume it lies in living a life without limits where every desire is fulfilled. But time and again, history proves that the ones who have been given the most of this world are often the ones who cry out the loudest about emptiness. How many times have we read about the richest of people, the most famous of actors, the most successful of business leaders, who suddenly confess that inside they feel broken? Why is that? Because the heart is not designed to be satisfied with wealth. The heart is not designed to be satisfied with fame. The heart was designed to be satisfied only with the remembrance of Allah. That is why no matter how much you give it to the world, it still feels hungry. When a person chases money, they never say enough. They always want more. When a person chases fame, they are never satisfied with 1 million followers. They want 2, then 5, then 10. When a person chases desires, each one fulfilled leads only to the next. It is like drinking salty water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Wealth is a tool. Fame is a tool, but when they become the purpose of your existence, your life becomes hollow. It is like building a mansion on the sand. No matter how beautiful it looks, it will eventually collapse. Think of the human heart as a vessel. When you fill it with worldly recognition, it becomes noisy but never calm. When you fill it with wealth, it becomes heavy but never content. But when you fill it with the remembrance of Allah, with prayer, with Quran, with sincerity, it becomes light, peaceful, and full of clarity. That is why those who turn toward Allah, even with nothing in their hands, smile with more sincerity than those who are drowning in luxury. There is a reason why the poor man who bows in prayer can sleep peacefully on the floor of his small home, while the wealthy man, despite his palace and his comfortable bed, turns restlessly through the night. Peace is not in the mattress, peace is in the soul. If the soul is unsettled, no amount of comfort will make life easier. If the soul is at peace, no amount of hardship will break you. This is the difference between those who chase the world and those who chase the one who created the world. Now, let us look at why the soul longs for its creator. No matter how much of this world you achieve, the soul whispers that something is missing. That whisper grows louder in moments of silence. A man may laugh in public, but when he is alone, he feels that ache. A woman may be admired by the world, but deep inside she feels incomplete. The soul knows that it came from Allah and it will return to Allah. Until it reconnects with Him, it will always feel displaced. Imagine being far away from home. You may be in the most beautiful hotel, eating the best food, but something inside keeps reminding you that this is not where you belong. The soul feels the same in this world. Unless it reconnects to its origin, it will always feel like a traveler lost in a strange land. That is why prayer is so powerful. It is not just ritual movement, it is the soul's return to its source. That is why the Quran is so powerful. It speaks in a language deeper than words. It speaks directly to the heart that is searching. That is why supplication is so powerful. It allows the heart to cry out, to release its burdens, and to find strength from the one who never abandons. The world may give you moments of happiness, but Allah gives you lasting peace. The world may make you smile for a day, but Allah makes you smile through hardship and ease. We live in a time when people try to silence their emptiness with noise. They drown it with music, entertainment, endless scrolling, constant distractions. But the heart does not heal through distraction, it heals through connection. Every time you silence your heart's call with noise, It grows louder when the noise fades. This is why people become restless, addicted, and anxious. The heart is crying for its creator, and nothing else will settle it. You see, wealth is not evil and fame is not evil, but they were never meant to be the destination. They are tests, they are tools. The question is, do you own them or do they own you? Do you use them to draw closer to Allah or do they pull you further away? A person who has nothing yet turns to Allah is far richer than the one who has everything but forgets Allah. When a person truly understands this, their outlook on life changes completely. They no longer chase wealth for its own sake. They see it as a means to do good, to give charity, to build for the hereafter. They no longer chase fame for its own sake. They see it as a platform to spread kindness, to inspire people toward goodness. They no longer chase desires for their own sake. They see discipline and obedience as sweeter than indulgence. Their soul becomes calm because it has finally found its purpose. This is why so many who achieve worldly success eventually turn toward faith. They realize that the applause fades, the bank account does not silence loneliness, and luxury does not remove pain. But when they put their forehead on the ground in prayer, they feel something they have never felt before. For the first time, the soul feels at home. For the first time, the heart breathes. For the first time, peace is real. And so, when we look at the stories of those who come to Islam from different walks of life, could not be surprised. The soul always knew where it belonged. It was only a matter of time before it found its way back. Some people realize it early, some realize it late, and some realize it only when everything else has failed them. But the mercy of Allah is that whenever they return, the door is open. When you pause to reflect upon life, you will realize that every human being, regardless of who they are, stands equal before the Almighty. Some people are celebrated by millions, and others live in complete obscurity. Some are carried in luxury cars with bodyguards, and others walk barefoot on dusty paths. Some dine at the finest of tables, while others wonder if they will have a meal that day. Yet when the heart stops beating, when the eyes close for the final time, when the soul is taken, there is no red carpet, no private jet, no expensive suit that can make that journey different. The soil that covers a king is the same soil that covers a beggar. The grave does not care whether you were a celebrity or an unknown. What matters is the faith you lived with and the actions you carried forward. What matters is whether you prepared for that inevitable day or whether you became too distracted with what others thought of you. It is a reminder that no matter how much people glorify you, they cannot grant you forgiveness on the day of judgment. No matter how much you are ignored by people, their neglect cannot lower your value in the sight of Allah. It is not the applause of the world that makes you successful, it is your sincerity in worship. It is not the number of people who knew your name, but whether your name is remembered by the angels and recorded among those who are beloved to your Creator. Every single human being stands equal in that moment, stripped of all illusions, carrying only their deeds. This is why the greatest dignity is not in titles but in humility. A person who walks humbly, who feeds the poor, who forgives when they can punish, who remembers Allah when they could have been distracted by pride. That person is greater in the sight of Allah than one who is carried high by the world but low in faith. The Prophet once reminded us that Allah does not look at your appearance or your wealth, but at your hearts and your deeds. This shows us that equality before Allah is not about what people see, but about what Allah knows. People may think you are great because of your voice, your beauty, your knowledge, your fame, but if inside there is arrogance and pride, then that greatness is worthless. On the other hand, people may not notice you at all, but if inside there is sincerity and love for Allah, then you are already honored. When we look at the world around us, it is easy to be deceived. Advertisements glorify success, social media glorifies lifestyles, and society often glorifies those who entertain. Yet if you remove the filters and the cameras, you realize that every single person will face the same questioning, the same accountability, and the same return to Allah. The angel of death does not delay his visit for a celebrity. The grave does not ask how many fans you had. The hereafter does not accept currency from this world. Everything is reset to its most basic truth, you and your deeds. Now consider the question of true success. Many define success by the size of their bank account, by the number of properties they own, by the influence they command. Yet success in this world is like riding on water. It looks beautiful for a moment, then disappears. The true definition of success is preparing for what comes after death, because that life will not end. This world will end, but that world will never end. A smart person is the one who invests in what lasts forever, not in what fades. True success is not in gathering wealth, but in giving it. It is not in being served, But in serving others, it is not in being remembered by people, but in being remembered by Allah. This is why the Quran constantly reminds us that this worldly life is temporary enjoyment, while the hereafter is better and everlasting. People forget that every achievement of this world is borrowed, not owned. Your money will pass to others. Your clothes will be taken off your body. Your car will be driven by someone else. Even your house may be sold, destroyed, or inherited. But the prayer you offered, the Quran you recited, the charity you gave, the kindness you showed, these remain with you forever. Think about it carefully. A person can live 70 years chasing this world, yet in the blink of an eye it ends. But a single moment of sincere repentance, a single tear shed in prayer, a single coin given to help the poor, all of that echoes into eternity. Which one then is the greater achievement? Which one is the true success? A business deal that earns you millions, or an act of obedience that earns you paradise? A trophy that people applaud for a year, or a book of deeds that glows with light forever? This is why we must recalibrate our vision of success. Do not be fooled into thinking that success is when people envy you. True success is when the angels welcome you. Do not think success is when your name trends on the internet. Success is when your name is called out in the heavens. Do not think success is when your house is admired. Success is when your grave becomes a garden from the gardens of paradise. And notice how this redefinition of success changes your life in this world as well. When you stop chasing the endless demands of people, you feel relief. When you stop competing for material possessions, you feel freedom. When you stop comparing your life to others, you feel gratitude. When your focus shifts to Allah, your heart is freed from the chains of people's opinions. That is when you truly live. Because success is not about being better than others. It is about being better than you were yesterday. One of the greatest tragedies of our time is that people measure themselves by temporary standards. They ask, how much money do I have compared to others? How many people like me compared to others? How far have I traveled compared to others? But the real questions are, how close am I to Allah compared to yesterday? How much Quran have I understood compared to before? How many lives have I touched with kindness? How much patience have I developed? How many sins have I abandoned? These are the real questions of success. Imagine the day of judgment when the richest and the poorest stand side by side, stripped of all worldly symbols. Imagine the rulers and the ruled standing shoulder to shoulder, all facing the same judgment. Imagine the famous and the unknown, their names called one after the other. That day will show us what success truly was. Those who invested in eternity will walk with light. Those who wasted their lives chasing shadows will stand in regret. That day no title will matter, no followers will matter, no recognition will matter. Only your deeds. When a person realizes that nothing of this world truly guides the heart, you can read countless books, listen to endless opinions, and search through every philosophy, but the heart still asks for something higher, something pure, something certain. That is why the Quran is not like any other book. It is not a book of entertainment, nor is it a book of stories alone. It is light, it is guidance. It is a cure for the diseases of the heart. When someone sits with the Quran sincerely, it begins to heal wounds that have been hidden for years. It speaks directly to the soul in a way that no human voice can. For a person who feels lost, the Quran becomes a compass. For a person who feels broken, the Quran becomes a source of comfort. For a person who feels empty, the Quran becomes nourishment. When the verses are recited, they carry a weight that penetrates through the walls people build around their hearts. How often has it happened that someone far from faith suddenly hears the words of the Quran and breaks down in tears? It is not because they understood every word. It is because the heart recognizes the speech of its creator. The Quran is more than words on paper. It is a living message that transforms lives. A single verse can change the direction of a person's existence. A single verse can give hope to someone who thought all was lost. A single verse can pull a person away from the edge of despair and plant them firmly on the path of peace. This is why when people of different backgrounds, cultures, and even faiths encounter the Quran with sincerity, they often describe a feeling of recognition. It is as though their heart knew it all along, because deep inside, every soul knows its creator. The Quran simply awakens that memory. It reminds us of who we are, where we came from, and where we are going. The world tries to distract us with noise, but the Quran brings us back to silence, to clarity, to the truth that no amount of wealth or fame can hide forever. And then there is prayer, that act of surrender that brings peace to the heart like nothing else. Many people misunderstand prayer. They see it as a burden, a ritual, a set of movements repeated daily. But in reality, prayer is the soul's meeting with its Lord. It is the moment when you put aside the world, when you put aside your struggles, and you speak directly to the one who already knows every detail of your life. When a person bows their head to the ground, they are not lowering themselves, they are elevating their soul, they are emptying their heart of pride, of ego, of burdens. Surrendering to Allah is not a sign of weakness. It is the greatest strength a human being can possess. Because in surrender, you admit that you are not in control, and that brings relief. People spend their lives trying to control what is beyond them. Health, wealth, relationships, the future. But when you stand in prayer and say, Allahu Akbar, you are declaring that the Almighty is greater than all of it, and that you trust Him with what you cannot control. That is when peace descends. That is when your worries begin to feel lighter. That is when your soul breathes. Many who seem strong on the outside are collapsing inside because they carry their burdens alone. But the one who surrenders to Allah carries nothing alone. They hand over their pain in sujood, they hand over their worries in dua, and they rise stronger than before. Their circumstances may not change immediately, and when the heart changes, everything else feels bearable. This is the beauty of surrender. It does not remove every hardship, but it removes despair. It does not erase every difficulty, but it gives you patience. It does not guarantee that life will be smooth, but it guarantees that you will never face life alone. Imagine the difference between walking through a storm with no shelter and walking through a storm under the protection of a strong roof. The storm may be the same, but the experience is entirely different. Prayer is that roof, surrender is that shelter, faith is that protection. We live in a world where people are constantly encouraged to rely on themselves, to find strength within, to carry their own burdens. But the truth is, human strength has limits. You will get tired, you will fall, you will feel weak. When you rely on yourself alone, life eventually crushes you. But when you surrender to Allah, you tap into a strength that never fades, a source that never runs dry, a support that never leaves. That is why the one who truly prays never feels abandoned, never feels completely lost, never feels that the weight of the world is unbearable. Think of those who lived before us, who faced trials far greater than ours, yet remained steadfast. Their secret was not that they were stronger than us physically. Their secret was that they surrendered fully to Allah. They understood that peace is not in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of faith. They knew that every test carried wisdom, and that their role was not to control the outcome, but to remain patient, faithful, and obedient. The Quran and prayer together form a pair that cannot be separated. The Quran gives direction, and prayer gives strength to walk that direction. The Quran gives clarity, and prayer gives comfort to accept that clarity. And prayer shows you the truth, and prayer trains you to live by that truth. A person who clings to both is never truly lost. They may stumble, they may struggle, but they will always rise again because their heart is anchored to the one who never lets go. And surrendering to Allah is not only about prayer, it is about every aspect of life. It is about how you deal with people, how you earn your wealth, how you treat your family, how you control your desires, how you react when things go wrong. Surrender means you let Allah's instructions shape your life, even when it is difficult, even when it goes against your ego, even when the world tells you otherwise. True peace comes not when you follow your own desires, but when you align your life with the will of the one who created you. It may seem difficult at first, but the reality is that nothing else will satisfy you. You can try to live according to your desires, but desires change and leave you empty. You can try to live according to people's expectations, but people are never satisfied. You can try to live according to culture, society trends, but they shift constantly. The only firm ground is to live according to Allah's guidance. That is the only path that leads to consistency, to clarity, to real peace. Guidance is not something you can purchase in a store. It is not something you inherit from your parents, and it is not something that automatically comes with age or knowledge. Guidance is a gift from Allah, a light that He places in the heart of whom He wills. You may see someone who has studied for years, who has all the information and intelligence, yet they remain far from the truth. At the same time, you may witness someone who never studied deeply, who lived a life distant from religion, and suddenly Allah opens their heart and they become a source of inspiration. That shows us that guidance is not an achievement of our own. It is an honor that Allah bestows upon us. This reality should fill us with humility. When you are guided, you do not boast about it. You do not look down on others. You do not act as though you are better. You should instead fall in gratitude, knowing that the greatest gift you hold is something you never deserved but was given out of mercy. How many times have we seen people turn to Allah in the most unexpected moments? Perhaps it was a tragedy that shook them. Perhaps it was a verse of Quran they stumbled upon. Perhaps it was the sincerity of a friend's words. The means may differ, but the source is always the same. Allah turned their heart. This is why arrogance is so dangerous. The moment you think you are safe, the moment you think you have achieved guidance by yourself, you are already in danger. The moment you begin mocking others for not being on your level, you risk losing the very blessing you are proud of. Instead, the guided person constantly prays, Allah, keep my heart firm upon your religion, because even the heart of the most righteous can slip if not held by Allah. Guidance also teaches us compassion. When you see someone astray, you do not curse them, you do not dismiss them as hopeless. You remember that guidance is a gift, and the one who guided you can guide them too. You treat them with patience, with kindness, with sincerity, because your role is not to guide, your role is to convey. It is Allah who guides. Your duty is to be a light, to show the way, to inspire, to remind, and to pray for them. How many stories do we know of people who were once enemies of Islam, later becoming its strongest supporters? How many individuals who once mocked faith became those who cried the most in prayer? That is the power of guidance. Never assume someone is too far. Never assume that the mercy of Allah will not reach them. Never assume that you are secure. Guidance is a gift, and it can come at any moment. When you realize this, your entire perspective on life changes. You begin to live with gratitude, you begin to live with humility, and you begin to live with hope. You do not despair over those who are far, and you do not grow arrogant over yourself. Instead, you walk the path with a trembling heart, always asking Allah to keep you on it. You recognize that the most valuable treasure in your life is not your wealth, not your status, not your health, but your guidance. Because everything else without guidance is a curse, and everything else with guidance becomes a blessing. And then we come to another reality of life. Life without Allah is an illusion of happiness. You see people laughing, but their laughter hides pain. You see them enjoying luxuries, but their hearts are restless. You see them surrounded by admirers, but they feel lonely. That is because when the soul is disconnected from its creator, everything else becomes empty. You may decorate the outside, but the inside remains broken. You may light up the room, but your own heart is in darkness. This illusion is powerful, and many fall for it. They scroll through pictures of people living glamorous lives and think they must be happy. Yet if you were to speak to those very people in the depths of their solitude, you would hear a different story. Happiness cannot be found in wealth alone. If it could, then the richest would be the happiest. But history shows us otherwise. Happiness cannot be found in fame. If it could, then the most famous would never fall into depression, yet they do often more than anyone else. Happiness cannot be found in fulfilling every desire. If it could, then those who live without limits would not speak of emptiness, but they do. Happiness cannot be manufactured through material possessions. If it could, then the ones with the biggest houses would not feel trapped in their own minds, yet they often do. Real happiness begins the moment you reconnect with Allah. It begins the moment you realize that life is not about chasing people's approval, but about preparing to meet your Creator. It begins the moment you understand that your heart was created for worship, for remembrance, for obedience. When you live without Allah, your heart will always crave something else, something more. When you live with Allah, your heart will finally rest, even if your worldly life is simple. The one who owns nothing but knows Allah is richer than the one who owns everything but is ignorant of Him. We see this truth in the simplest of examples. A poor man who remembers Allah sleeps peacefully on the floor, while a wealthy man without Allah tosses and turns in his luxury bed. A woman with little to her name, but with faith, walks through hardship with dignity, while another with everything she desires still feels incomplete. The difference is not in what they own, but in who they know. Those who know Allah walk with peace that cannot be bought. Those who forget Allah walk with anxiety that cannot be sold. This illusion of happiness without Allah is one of the greatest deceptions of our time. People drown themselves in distractions, hoping to fill the emptiness. Endless scrolling, endless consumption, endless noise. Yet the silence of the heart only grows louder. No matter how much you try to silence it, the soul cries out for its Creator. The only cure is to turn back, to remember Allah, to surrender to Him, to allow His light to fill the cracks in your heart. When that happens, you realize that true happiness was never out there. It was always within, waiting for you to return. Guidance as a gift and happiness through Allah are two sides of the same reality. Without guidance, you cannot taste true happiness. Without Allah, happiness is an illusion. But with guidance, even the smallest blessing becomes sweet. With Allah, even the hardest trial becomes bearable. With guidance, your life has direction. With Allah, your heart has peace. This is the secret of those who smile in hardship, who are calm in chaos, who remain hopeful in despair. They are not extraordinary people by themselves. They are people upon whom Allah has bestowed the gift of guidance, and with it, He has given them real happiness.